of Brown Girls Are Beautiful. I hope your Thursday is going wonderful. Heute ist Donnerstag, all right? Guten Morgen for all of the people out there. Um, Today is another hot day. I think we're going to be in the 90s again. We've had scorching hot temperatures, y'all. We did have a thunderstorm last night. With all that being said, I just hope everybody makes the best out of today. We have to think about it. If you had limited time on this planet, limited time on this earth, what would you be doing with your time? Are you going to pursue your dreams? Are you going to spend it doing things you don't like doing? What's most important to you, money or your time, your energy, your life? We got to think about life like that, y'all, because we've been, trained and indoctrinated to think that we have to stick to a system. And we've been systematically programmed for too many years, and that needs to stop. So let's just make sure we put ourselves and our futures ahead of everything and everyone else, including these fake celebrities, y'all. We have to do that. Just a second. Let me see if I can hear myself. Okay, I can be heard. That is wonderful. All right, let's get into it. So today we're going to be speaking briefly about the Diddy trial. Some of you may have already heard the news, but if you haven't, let's go ahead and go over this. All right, so I'm going to read an article right here, the P. Diddy trial, live updates. All right, before verdict is reached, Sean Diddy Combs' legal team has one last chance to plead his case in the mogul's criminal trial. Remember, Sean Diddy Combs, this is going to be the last week of the trial. After this, he will not have the trial anymore. The trial is going to be over, y'all. So going into July, they'll be reaching a verdict real soon. Prosecutors and attorneys for the embattled hip hop mogul returned to Manhattan court on June 26 to begin closing arguments in the sweeping federal crimes case. The prosecution is scheduled to kick off arguments, which have previously been estimated to last 4 hours on each side. So that's a long time. This comes after Judge Aaron Subramanian met with U.S. attorneys and the defense during a June 25th charge conference, which has led to determined instructions for jurors before they begin deliberating. Hi, Sim. You said, What am I reading? I'm reading USA Today's article. Um, that's what I'm reading, and it's about the P. Diddy trial and what's going on. So they're about to go into deliberation real soon. What's good, Turbo Tunes? How are you? Um, Prosecutors called for more than 30 witnesses over the course of nearly 7 weeks of testimony. Y'all, that's a lot of witnesses. Several individuals in Combs' personal and professional orbit, from ex girlfriend Cassandra Cassie Ventura, fine, Jane to Danny Kane, Don Richard, and rap peer Kid Cudi took the stand, y'all. Can you grab the camera for a Lamar Jackson? All right, so I don't know what that means. As testimony came to an end earlier this week, U.S. attorneys painted a picture of Combs and his employees being personally involved with organizing his alleged freak offs, y'all. So they organized his freak offs as a football player. Okay. Yeah, so we're not talking about football right now. Combs is 55 and was arrested in September and charged with sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation to engage in prostitution. He has pleaded not guilty, you all. What are your thoughts? Do you think he's guilty of these crimes? Combs' ex-girlfriend testified that she pleaded with him to stop pressuring her into sex acts with male escorts, and she was shocked when she learned of Ventura's Fines bombshell 2023 lawsuit, y'all. The witness, identified as Jane, who dated Combs on and off from 2021 to 2024, alleged years of coerced sex with escorts. She'd initially thought the couple would just have a one night escapade with a sex worker, but it allegedly turned into frequent hotel nights where Combs pushed her to have sex with several men consecutively, lasting as long as 3.5 days, y'all. This is craziness. Um, let's keep going. I don't want to be used and locked in a room to fulfill your fantasies, Jane said in a message to Combs while they were dating, which was shown in court during the rapper's sex crimes trial. I'm not a porn star. I'm not an animal, she went in another text. Jane also said she fainted when she learned of Ventura Fine suing Combs in November of 2023 on allegations he trafficked, sexually assaulted, and physically abused her. Now, what did Cassie Jane say in their testimony, y'all? Do you believe that Cassie and Jane Doe and these people are 100? I want to know, do you think they're 100% victims? 100%. Do you think that they had no culpability in what was going on? Do you think that they could not escape? They couldn't get away? What do you think? Okay. So the woman both said, oh, yeah, let's keep going. Two alleged victims, the singer Ventura Fine and a woman known in court by the pseudonym Jane, testified that Combs physically, sexually, and emotionally abused them. The jurors saw hotel surveillance footage of the rapper beating Ventura Fine. The women both said they took part in days long drug fueled sex parties, sometimes called freak offs, with male sex workers, while Combs watched, masturbated, and sometimes filmed, y'all. Both women allege he also threatened to cut off financial support or leak sex tapes when they complained about their statement. That's craziness. Ventura and Jane also both said that at times they took part in the performances because they loved Combs and wanted to make him happy. All right. And they were fearful of the repercussions if they refused to participate in the acts. Now, this to me sounds like, if he's threatening to cut off financial support and you are supposed to be his girlfriend, then you have a choice to make. You can leave. That's your choice. You can leave. If convicted, all counts, the Bad Boy Records founder faces a minimum of 15-year prison term and could be sentenced to live behind bars. Um, Prosecutors spent weeks calling dozens of witnesses in their arguments against Combs. The juror heard from his former girlfriend and business associates, federal agents, security officers, and others. By his lawyers wrapped up but his lawyers wrapped up their case in less than 30 minutes without calling anyone to the stand. That's really quick to wrap up a case. Why? One factor to note: defendants in criminal cases aren't required to present evidence, and judges, because the burden of proof is on the prosecution. You have to prove that this person is guilty beyond a shadow of a doubt. So basically, defendants in criminal cases aren't required to present evidence, and judges instruct juries not to hold that against defendants. To win a guilty verdict, prosecutors have to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Combs's lawyer haven't explained why they didn't call any witnesses, but they may think prosecutors haven't cleared that bar, or they don't want to risk calling a witness who could sway the jury against their client. What would jurors consider? Legal experts said that the jury would need to consider the prosecution's evidence of Combs's physical, sexual, and psychological abuse, abuse against the defense's evidence that his alleged victims consented to the performance in at least some instances. The 12-member jury must be unanimous to convict Combs on any of the counts. The question is, which narrative is going to hold more weight, said Heather, a professor at New York Law School. Prosecutors are also expected to argue that Combs is guilty of racketeering conspiracy because his employees helped organize the freak off, sexual performances, and cover up abuse. Combs's lawyers have argued there was no conspiracy, in part because his employees were not aware of anything improper about the sexual performances, and that any drugs they procured for their boss were for his personal use. Now, I don't believe that. I do believe that the people that work for Diddy knew that he was involved in some freaky stuff. They knew exactly what was going on. If they were the ones ordering baby oil, preparing the hotel, organizing and getting drugs prepared for people, they knew that something illegal was taking place. So I'm not going to say that his staff members don't share some type of culpability in this. As far as these alleged victims, we got to think about victims here. When we talk about sexual assault, sexual trafficking, y'all, there are children being trafficked every day. that are real victims, who don't have a voice, who don't have a say so, who can't fight for themselves, who don't have people to argue for them. These are grown adult women who said they feared that he was going to cut off their monetary gain. So you have a choice in that situation to make. Do you leave or stay in the situation? Okay, because it's not a requirement to take part in these things if you don't want to be a part of Diddy's life. You can just cut him off and say, "Hey, I don't want any parts and dealings with this." But you like this lifestyle. And this is just my take on it. Now, I know people may not agree, but my take on it is if this is not something that you want to entertain, you don't have to entertain it. You're just going to get cut off from his life. You won't have these benefits. You won't have this lifestyle of lavish. So really, that's how I see it. And so they said that they're going to basically, the prosecution, they're going to have to cut back on how they are going to basically prove that he's guilty of all these things, because so far a lot of the things we heard is very weird. But there are people that are into some weird stuff in this world. So is he being charged because of his freakiness? Is he being what is it that he really did, y'all? Now, the Kid Cudi thing, I think that was definitely going a bit overboard, organizing to have the car blown up, but he didn't do it himself. They said they found female DNA at the crime scene. So he got his assistant allegedly to get this done, right? And apparently they said she was being threatened. And so she was in fear. So this is why she went along with things that he told her to do. Now, we have seen episodes and tirades of his tantrums, and we can see how explosive he can be in his behavior. I do think that he could make people around him feel threatened, and I do believe that he could make people around him feel, intimidated. Now, the thing is, you have to be very strategic in how you move around individuals like this. I want to get into people that undergo real abuse, real assault, and people that go through real psychological abuse. Usually, these people are in marriages, y'all. There's so many women around here that are in relationships that go through abuse that you wouldn't even know it, you wouldn't even recognize it. They come to work every day and they don't say anything. And sometimes these women don't work. Sometimes these women don't have the financial means to get out of the situation. They might not have a family structure, a family unit. They might not have anybody to support them. So they feel like this is the only way that they can survive. So this is why it makes it very difficult for them to escape. Now, in Cassie Ventura's case, we know that she had family. We know that she had friends. We know she had relatives. So my thing is, I think that um, Puffy was very coercive, and I also believe that he was um, really persuasive in trying to get her to stay. I think he made it a scary thing if she thought about leaving, because definitely, do I believe he could pay off the police? Yes. Do I believe he could pay off a lot of individuals? Hey, he paid to make that surveillance tape go away for all these years. But also, I think that Cassie is very strategic as well. I don't think she's dumb. Um, and I think that if she wanted to get out of that situation, I think she could have a long time ago. That's just my thoughts, y'all. Because like I said, you got to think about people that are really victimized, people that are tied down, locked down in basements. We've seen these narratives on the news where they can't escape. Teenage girls can't get away. And I just really think this whole trial was brought up to tarnish his character, to tarnish his reputation, which he's done that on his own, just by the way that he acts, just by the way he's treated people. But because he has all this money, all this power, all this fame, it's been swept under the rug by the people around him. For fear of losing their job. And you see this every day. This goes on in everyday jobs, everyday work environments. There are managers, supervisors that abuse their power with certain coworkers, and there are other coworkers that witness this behavior, but they're not going to speak up on behalf of that other coworker because they don't want to lose their job. Same thing with Puffy. Nothing different here. And just like the Tyler Perry case, that guy, I'm going to say it again, was a grown man. If he was receiving text messages from Tyler Perry and he knew that these text messages were sexual in nature, why would he go to this guy's house? Why would he have drinks at Tyler Perry's house in a personal setting with no other witnesses around? Why would he then be coerced to stay at Tyler Perry's house, go into a bedroom, take his clothing off, get into the bed, and then say, I'm not interested in Tyler Perry? Because you're sending mixed signals. And you know that Tyler Perry was interested in you by the display of text messages that were released. So at some point, you should have stood up for yourself as a grown man. So that's why I say there are certain victims and there are certain people that are 100% victimized. And so a lot of these alleged victims with these high profile cases are claiming victimhood because they wanted to reap certain benefits out of the situation. If they really were scared, if they really were fearful of their lives, you do everything. The first thing we know about the law of preservation is self-preservation. The first thing you're going to try to do is save yourself. If you feel that you are really in imminent danger, y'all, you're not going to sit up there and keep dancing with the devil, tap dancing with the devil, going back and forth with somebody that you feel that you're intimidated or threatened by. If your real life is in jeopardy. And that's why I'm not buying these arguments from all of these allegations. Same thing with R. Kelly. If they're gonna have all of these charges brought up on P. Diddy, and then we want to compare that to R. Kelly. R. Kelly should be released right now. And then it's alleged that they're trying to get rid of R. Kelly behind bars. And I think a lot of this has to do with these people made somebody upset behind the scenes in Hollywood. It was something that they did. For P. Diddy, I think it has something to do with the liquor deal. With R. Kelly, I think it has something to do with his catalog. I think that man is worth over $1 billion and his publishing. And so, what do people do when they need to get to what they want? They try to get rid of that person. Yeah, I think they're trying to get rid of R. Kelly. And really, he got railroaded by the justice system. We all saw if they can do that to these people that are high profile and have some type of money, what can they do to regular people? We have to be real careful and real strategic when we start, calling people victims and when we start claiming that people did these acts, because you have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that this happened. And in a lot of cases I haven't heard where this was proved beyond a shadow of a doubt. In the case of R. Kelly, Azriel's parents set him up. The text messages were not even released in court, but the mother, Azriel Clary's mother, knew that that girl was underage, put her on a plane and allowed her to go across country to Vegas to be with R. Kelly in a hotel room alone with him. What mother does that to her 16-year-old and 17-year-old daughter and then coerces her to tell R. Kelly what she should do and basically lie about your age? He was set up. And with Puff Daddy, he's been doing stuff behind the scenes for years. It's just that people allowed it, people covered it up. So, you know, it's not just Puff Daddy, it's not just R. Kelly. There are many different key players that took part in these acts that have not been brought on trial. And so when you see something and you don't say something, you are just as guilty as well, because you had a part in that. You aided and abetted this type of behavior. And Puff Daddy had an assistant, and I don't even know if she got put on the stand or not. I think her name was something Coram. But I did a video on her a while back. She has actually gone missing off the scene, but she was the one arranging. She was the one arranging all of these sexcapades for Puff Daddy. And not just that, there was a woman that filed a police report, and that police report got swept under the rug because I strongly believe P. Diddy paid off the police department. Y'all don't think this stuff goes on, but yes, it does. Rewind back to Steve Harvey and the case that he had with his ex-wife, and think about how they forged her signature on documents for property that was supposed to be given to the second wife out in Texas, y'all. He had the ex-wife locked up in jail for Christmas all the way through New Year's and released on his birthday. Yeah, these people with money will do some very egregious things. That's why I said there are people that are really going through abuse for real, people that are silenced out here that can't tell their story because nobody wants to believe them, or either people are getting paid off. There are women that go through psychological abuse, emotional abuse, and physical abuse. All types of abuse that we wouldn't even fathom out here. So we got to be real careful when we call these people victims, right? Because I think what it does is it starts to downplay the narrative when you hear somebody else come forward with their story. It's like, oh, you were a victim, but then again, you were really scared because you thought you were going to lose your position at this company, or you weren't going to reap benefits. So that's why you went along with it. That's no excuse to me. Because aren't you taught in elementary school, if somebody does something, touches you the wrong way, say something, just say no? But you're telling me because this is P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, you were scared that you were going to lose whatever benefits that you were to reap. So you went along with it. That's not an excuse to me. There are people that don't have any type of say so in what they do at all. There are people who have been held at GUN point, knife point, all types of stuff, being beaten down by multiple people, held down, held captive against their will. So when you want to talk to me about victims, I you got to prove that you really were victimized. That's what I'm saying. So all of this alleged, sexcapade stuff, baby oil, freakiness, tapes, y'all, he was having parties day in and day out, partying. Everybody in Hollywood was talking about these Diddy parties. They're caught on camera, caught on tape. Nobody has a party like a Diddy party. Nobody throws a party like Diddy. And for all these celebrities saying that they were not there, oh, I left before the after party, they're lying. This is why they got quiet, because they didn't want to be brought up on charges. They didn't want to come up because they knew that they took part in some of this stuff. You got Jennifer Lopez that was, she was knowing what was going on. Ellen DeGeneres went quiet. They said Ashton Kutcher was a part of it. It's so many people that went to these Diddy parties. There are so many tapes out there that all automatically all of a sudden have gone missing. There are so many pictures out there floating around on the internet at people at these white parties, at these Diddy parties. Yet now all of a sudden everybody's quiet. Everybody has separated themselves from Diddy. Same thing with the Weinstein situation. Same thing with the Epstein situation. We know that Beyonce was out there partying with Diddy. We know that Jay-Z was back there partying with Diddy. What did Kevin Hart say? Ask your daddy. He was back there with me. Yeah, they were back there with them. But because they want to try to paint the narrative that they were not a part of this, now we have Cowboy Carter. Now we have all this. Oh, Rumi and what's her daughter's name? Blue Ivy. Who cares about that? Y'all are just as guilty because y'all took part in this behavior. Y'all knew what was going on, and now y'all try to wipe the slate clean and make it seem like you didn't know what was going on. Jennifer Lopez, you were back there too. Stop acting like you're innocent. Ellen DeGeneres, you were back there with them. All of y'all. Oprah Winfrey, Obama. Yeah, I'm talking about your alleged president, Michelle Obama. He let me correct myself. He, Michelle Obama, Michael Obama, can have a podcast all he wants, but y'all not tricking anybody. There's a reason why Joan Rivers went missing when she came on camera. They asked Joan Rivers, when do you think we'll see the first GAY president? She said, we got that already. Everybody knows. Michelle Obama's a man. Let's just get over it. Right after that, what happened to Joan Rivers? She ended up wiped off this planet. And what did they say? She died in surgery, and it has something to do with her throat. They're sending a message, y'all. The throat chakra. How are you able to talk? How are you able to speak if your throat is messed up, y'all? These people send warnings, they send signs, all right? And it's nothing to be played with. That's why it's bigger things that's going on behind the scenes with this Diddy case than what we see. And I also know that they're protecting politicians, top officials, and also presidents that have been involved in these freak offs and these Diddy parties and these tapes. They just don't want it released. And I think that's why Diddy is not going to get the time that they think people are going to get. He knows a lot of information on people, y'all. There are a lot of, and they don't know where some of this information is planted. He could have master copies of tapes, flash drives of things. Justin, his sons, King Combs and all of them, they probably have moved evidence for him and got it stored somewhere where we don't even know where it's at, in a storage unit somewhere. Y'all, you got these people are very strategic, and they're just covering up for each other. But deep down inside, it's bigger than just Cassie Ventura. She was just a pawn in the chess piece, y'all. They always try to use the queen, but y'all, it's deeper than Cassie. And I think she was tipped off, and I think she was definitely somebody spoke to her behind the scenes on what to do to break this whole case open, so that P. Diddy could be put on public humiliation and all these things could be exposed. It is very unfortunate that Cassie, in the midst of all of this, had to have her personal, arrangements and things that she was doing put on display for the public. So now everybody knows her business, but out of it, she got what, $50 million. So she doesn't have to work a day in her life. Her children doesn't have to work a day in their lives. So did she win or did she lose? Which one do you think? Real victims, sometimes they don't get paid. Sometimes all they get is the other person going to jail. Sometimes the other person doesn't even get put on trial, doesn't go to jail. So I don't really feel sorry for people that made a choice because they wanted a lifestyle. Okay. Because you could have made other alternative moves. What could you have done? Maybe you wanted to be in the industry so bad that you said, "Oh, I'll do these freak offs. I want to please him. I love him so much." Okay. How many women have loved somebody so much that they've sacrificed for these men? How many men have loved a woman so much that they sacrificed for that woman, messed their credit up, signed for a car, put their credit cards on the line? There are things that people have done for one another out of the name of love. Does that mean you want to make arrangements to have freak offs? um I'll wait. So when do you cross the line, and when do you take accountability for yourself? When do you say, "No, I'm not going to let my body be used as a pawn, as a tool in your sick, dark, twisted fantasies," right? So what type of victim is that? I'm confused. Are you a participant, or are you a victim? Were you held at knife point? Were you held at gunpoint? What took place? Were you held down? Did you get beaten? Were there multiple people beating you down, holding you down, telling you, "You got to do this"? I'm going to hold your family captive, hostage. What was really going on to make you a victim? And I'm not trying to victim shame and victim bash. I am just stating the facts that we've heard, what we've read, what has been presented in a court of law, y'all. There, like I said, there are real victims out here. There are children who are victimized every day. Who's advocating for them? Who's speaking up for them? Nobody. And this is taking place in churches. Let's not skip over that fact. All up in the Catholic Church, they are still messing with those little boys in the churches. Look at these pastors, Eddie Long, and what they've been doing behind the scenes. Yeah, and since we're talking about pastors, you notice how TD Jakes has gone quiet, because wasn't he back there partying with Diddy too? Why wasn't he brought up on charges and on trial? What did he know? He wasn't called as a witness. Yeah. So now all of a sudden we got all these so-called Christians that believe that TD Jakes is so innocent, regardless of all the stuff we heard that went down and took place at these private Diddy parties. And even in public, we have seen some of what was going on. He's taking people's cell phones. Why you have to take cell phones? Because you don't want any evidence being leaked to the public, y'all. And he's not the only one. I remember back in the day, one of my colleagues that I used to work with, we had dinner after work. We had like a lunch dinner, and she met Chris Brown. And I'm not bringing Chris Brown into it, but I'm just going to tell you how these celebrities roll, these so called celebrities, which I'll classify as celebrities. She said they were invited to Chris Brown's house. This is back when he used to still live in Virginia, y'all. And her and her friend, I think it was two or three of them, went to his house. They asked for their cell phones. And this, y'all, this was back in like when she told this story, 2015-ish, 2014, something like that. So it happened a while ago. She took the cell phones. She said Chris Brown was acting like, from what she described from him, a complete asshole. And I said to her at the table, I said, he sounds like a complete jackass. And she said, oh, he is. And people make excuses for these behaviors because, oh, that's such and such. That's Chris Brown. That's Puff Daddy. That's who cares? Y'all need to have, they need to have more respect for themselves. I don't care what your title is. I don't care if you are the president of the United States. Does that give you a right to go around and act like a jackass to people? It doesn't. It doesn't. And just like, people feel like they put people on a higher tier than what they should be, placing people on a pedestal. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. You have to value yourself more. For the ladies out there that think they have to do all these favors to be into Hollywood, for the males out there that think they have to do these behaviors just to be in Hollywood, what do you value more? They say, what is it to profit? What is it to gain the world and profit the world and to lose your soul? So you rather, that's selling your soul, whether you see it that way or not, but that's what that is. That is selling your soul, all in the name of fame, fortune, and benefits, because you'll never have real power if you have to sell out like that, y'all. So I just wanted to go over that. This has been an episode of Brown Girls Are Beautiful. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for liking the video, sharing the video. Thank you for all the people that have subscribed. And I just hope that we really start to wake up as a people. And even if you're going through this on a regular job, if you're going through any type of, abuse, please speak out and say something. Be very strategic in how you handle your affairs. You don't have to sell out to anybody on this planet. I don't care if they're a supervisor, a director, an executive. You don't have to do that, because what's meant for you will be for you. You don't have to do these favors. You don't have to exploit yourself. You do not have to go out here and prostitute your body, y'all. And people know better. At this day and age, people know better. So, like that, I'm going to sign out. Y'all continue. Okay, continue to walk in your divinity. It is 11:11 on the dot as I present this message. Thank you so much for listening, watching. I am signing out. Auf Wiedersehen, you all. Stay blessed, and I'll holler at y'all later. Yeah, my friend just texted me 11:11. That's right, girl. All right, y'all.